Today, I'm going to talk about how not to run a political campaign. But the actual title of this piece is Politics Are Sports for People Who Are Too Fat to Run. However, before I get into the nuts and bolts of how not to run a political campaign, or I should say, how to run a political campaign wrong hero style, I'd like to discuss some recent developments. The magazine George, have you seen this? It's it's John F. Kennedy Jr.'s big project, and it just goes to show how our politics have developed, let us put it that way, diplomatically, politically diplomatically, that John F. Kennedy, 1961, Cuban, a Bay of Pigs, 1963, Cuban Missile Crisis, and then 1995, JFK Jr. What does he do? What's his big accomplishment? How is he going to be remembered by history? Why? By putting out a gigantic Vanity Fair clone magazine, a boutique publication with like 200 pages of ads trading on the name of his dead father. Perhaps it's a brutal way of putting it. Actually, it's a very amusing magazine, even if it is, as John F. Kennedy Jr. so adroitly puts it, post-political. Oh, it's about politics, but we wouldn't want to offend anybody by actually saying anything that had any partisan content whatsoever. Anyway, historians are typically reluctant to say, what if? They don't like to speculate on what if, basically because they have no imagination. But I would like to pose a few of these questions, a few of these what ifs, if you will. They call George Washington the father of his country. And they say that Washington never told a lie. Well, I have a question here. If Washington never told a lie, then how did he get laid? That's what I need to know. There's that famous, during Lexington and Concord, that general said, don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. What they don't tell you is the rest of this sentence, which was, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes, and if they're wearing sunglasses, then blow their heads off on general principle. Now, of course, also during that war, there was Patrick Henry's famous, I regret that I have but one life to give for my country. Now, what they don't tell you is what Patrick Henry's cat said, which was, I regret that I have but 9 lives to give for my country. Now, here's another what if. What if, during the War of 1812, the British had had the atom bomb? Then our national anthem might very well sound something like, oh, say, can you... Well, and that leads me to wonder about Francis Scott Key. In terms of popular songwriting, wasn't Francis Scott Key kind of a one-hit wonder? I mean, sure, he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, but what else did he ever do? Nothing. And even the Star-Spangled Banner itself is written in this sort of language which I might make bold to call typical lawyerese. I mean, have you read the lyrics to this? Oh, say can you see by the stars dawn's early night light, but what so proudly we hail at the starlight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night, through the ramparts we watched, was so gallantly streaming. Well, what is this guy writing, a dissertation or something? I mean, it's just like all one big sentence. And that leads me to think, given the attention span of a typical American, which, as we all know, is about 7 seconds, maybe we should rewrite the Star-Spangled Banner. It might be classier if we wrote it in a different musical idiom. And since there's nobody here to shout out musical idioms in which it might be written, I'll just run down a list of the ones that I've managed to come up with on my own. Well, classical music, for example, might be something like Es gibt eine kleine Häschen und der hat geschießt der Flag. Es gibt eine kleine Schweinhund, platzt ihm in ein Bodybag. Something like that. Or, one of the most truly American of American musical idioms is, of course, the blues. And A blues version of the Star Spangled Banner might go something like, I was born for bad luck in a little shotgun shack, and trouble's all I know. I woke up at the break of morn, flag tattered and torn. Lord, how I hate to hear that rooster crow. Yeah, just for an example. Or perhaps folk music, American folk music would be a good idiom to rewrite the national anthem. And you're like, hey, look at that flag. It's waving in the morning. It's waving in the evening. Brother, look at it wave. Yeah. Or maybe something a little classier, like, I don't know, 40s, 50s jazz, vocal jazz. Like the Star Spangled Banner. Well, it was going to town, the nasty old British were trying to shoot it down, shoot it down. They shot away, hey, all day and all night, all day, all night. It was a fright that they were most impolite. I turned around, hey, and what do you know? Hey Joe, I had to stop and stare because the flag was still there. Dun 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 dun. Or I don't know, maybe jazz isn't quite the accessible idiom in which to put this new way of singing the Star Spangled Banner. So maybe something that everybody likes, Broadway show tunes like, oh gosh, it sure is bright out. Say that flag is grand. Glad it's not still night out. Let's strike up the band. Something like that. But then again, maybe we should start thinking towards the future and what younger people would like to hear in the way of a idiom for the Star Spangled Banner. For example, oh, I don't know, Rolling Stones style rock and roll. You know, like, I was up puking till sunrise, my pants got a hole in the knee, looked out my bathroom window, flag was flying in the breeze. I love to see that flag still flapping, baby, keep it flapping, baby. Wow. Need a drink. Yummy. Or I don't know, maybe something even a little more modern than that, like punk rock, you know, like monarchy in the U.S. It's coming sometime, I must confess. The flag is a disgrace to history, but why it's still there, it was a mystery. You know, something like that. Sex Pistols style punk rock, or maybe a little more modern, maybe we can get into thrash, you know, like, oh, I don't know. Let's see, I hate to brag, but look at that flag. I hate to brag, but that was our flag. Hey! You know, you can jazz up any song just by throwing in the word hey. You know, like the Red Red Robin goes, Robin along. Hey, along. You know, anything at all. For that matter, you know, you could write a thrash song about virtually anything at all. Any warning will be, could be a thrash song, like, cross at the green, not in between. Hey! You know, something like that. Or I don't know, perhaps we should acknowledge inner city ghetto culture and write the Star Spangled Banner in a rap idiom, like, I was walking down the street, I was really ill, then my brother gave me some penicillin. I was walking through the hood and the noise was a fright. I was looking at the flag, it was red and blue and white. You know, get a little race riot stuff in there. I don't know. Or maybe industrial music, which would be, you know, picture a sound like a kitten being sucked up into a vacuum cleaner, like a, and star, spangle, banner, banner. Yeah, something like that. Or, oh, we could get into a grunge idiom, like, Spangled Banner, made of cheesecloth, on the flagpole, gets my rocks off. Wow, the singing stuff, it's hard, you know. You gotta keep your throat moving. Or, oh, I don't know. You could do it in a more jovial sort of reggae, you know, rhythm, like, that flag, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when you shoot at you? Or, Frank Sinatra, idiom, like, oh, say. Or, I don't know, we can get into world beat, for example, like, Dead Can Dance type thing, like, Shoot the flag, shoot the flag, shoot the flag. It occurs to me that somebody's going to mention that I neglected something very important. Yeah, this is big, and I got to remember to, yeah, Gregorian chants, like star, 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 star. Yeah, and here's an idea. What if Johnny Most, the beloved sportscaster, lately deceased, what if he was reporting on the events that the Star Spangled Banner were based on? And of course, this will be my grand finale. They're shooting at the flag now. The British filling through around the embankment there. Oh, this is terrible. They shot the flag walls. Oh, this is terrible. The British are shooting at the flag. The British are shooting at the flag. Oh, this is terrible. Ow, ow, ow. Anyway, I'm the wrong hero, and you are tuned to Politics is Sports for People Who Are Too Fat to Run. And I hope you enjoy this portion of my presentation. Hi, I'm the wrong hero. And I'm back. It occurred to me that when I was recording the modern day versions of the Star Spangled Banner, oh, by the way, I have a mood ring, but I turned it backwards and now it's a doom ring. Anyway, I missed two major genres when I decided to do this project. So I'd like to let you know what I've come up with in the way of modernizing the Star Spangled Banner. Well, the first one is a bubblegum song. Let's see. Geez, I don't know what the tune is. Let's see. Oh, you silly old colonial, Fort McHenry ain't so hot. If you don't stop all your baloney, you'll find your flag has been shot. 'Cause now the Star-Spangled Banner is shot full of holes. Your flag now, if you please, will look like a Swiss cheese. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. The other one was Motown. We mustn't neglect Motown in the pantheon of great musical genres. And let's see. Your flag's flying in the night, and if you want us to fight, then we'll give you a fight. We're gonna shoot your flag, and then we'll shoot up your fleet and make you run. We're gonna shoot your flag, and then you'll beat a retreat before we're done. Dun 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 dun. Just for what it's worth. Oh, and one other thing. Tell me something. Is this Barbara Bush? Just wanted to know. I'm the wrong hero, and this is Politics is Sports for People Who Are Too Fat to Run. Good evening. I am the wrong hero, and this is my nominating speech to the Presidential Convention. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your wallets. On this great and glorious occasion, on this great and historic occasion, I wouldn't want to be too immodest. On this great and historic occasion, I would like to ask the assembled who are gathered here today one crucial question. How many of you are too apathetic to respond to a direct question? Raise your hands. Okay? Now, how many of you would refuse to answer a rhetorical question? Don't raise your hands. Well, I can see that some of you hecklers are still undecided. Very well. Good evening. I am not going to make a speech because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. You don't? Okay, then I'll make the speech. I would like to take this occasion, as opposed to some other, even less appropriate occasion, to announce my candidacy for presidency of the United States. I'd like to, but I don't have a chance in hell of winning, so I'll just sit here and waste your time for a while. Now, if I may interject a personal commentary about myself and my candidacy, I'd like to say that I'm like the little engine who could, except my motto is, I think I can, I think I can, fail. Excuse me for one moment. They'd be dead. Our founding fathers also knew that there's no such thing as a free lunch, and that dead people don't have to worry too much about who picks up the tab at the all-you-can-eat buffet, or whether to put extra chocolate sprinkles and nuts on their soft serve cones at the Ponderosa ice cream bar. By the way, that reminds me of a humorous anecdote, but I'm not going to tell it now. Oh, all right, I'll tell it if you insist. A soldier goes into a soda parlor. He says to the girl behind the counter, Miss, can I have an ice cream sundae? And she says, crushed nuts? And he replies, no, shell shock. Anyway, I say it's time the voters of this great and hard-working country were given a chance to concentrate on the real business of government, which is basically to give superannuated ward healers who wear fedoras the size of their heads an opportunity to network so they can land cushy no-show sinecures once the voters kick them out. Now, a key word in this election is populism. There's been a lot of loose talk about populism in this race, and I intend to exploit it. In this race, I intend to tailor right-wing, xenophobic, know-nothing populism to appeal to leftists. I also intend to adapt daft, fiscally unsound left-wing populism to appeal to conservatives. I believe that big business is bad. I also believe that lazy poor people are bad. So I'm all for small businesses staffed by industrious poor people who don't go around begging for special favors like the minimum wage or paid sick days. As you can see, my friends, my brand of shoot-from-the-lip populism will seemingly cater to your every whim while actually merely pandering to your prejudices. Now, I am not a wealthy man, and I will be the first to admit that this is not my fault, but that of big government. After all, in this great country, anybody can be rich. All you need to be rich is to be mean and good at math. Anyway, because of my lack of money, I am the underdog in this race. $20 million? Boss, I ain't got 20 cents. Actually, I got about 20 cents. Because of this, I believe the press is my natural ally, because cynicism, not ideology, is my motive. And I'm betting it'll get me elected, or at least noticed in the press. Now, I don't take the issues seriously. What kind of fool do you take me for? I believe not in issues, but in the intelligence of the common man. I am talking very slowly, not because I think you are stupid, but because I know you are stupid. Oh, just kidding. It was that famous cynic, Ambrose Bierce, in his Devil's Dictionary, who defined a cynic as the blackguard whose faulty vision sees things as they are, not as they ought to be. My friends, I am that man. I am not the man who saves the cat from the tree. I am the man who cuts down the tree and kills the cat. So, I make colorful copy. Now, I do not wish to appeal to those who wish to focus on the worst in human nature. I do not want to tell the quick lies and half-truths that incite unstable people into doing dreadful things. But if these people want to vote for me, that's okay with me. I have no problem with that. But seriously, some said that this is a great country with darkness to match. If elected, I'll prove it. My goal in this race is to be more popular than the masters I serve, global corporations. And some American ones too. For let us not forget, this is America. That reminds me of a funny story that has nothing to do with what I just said, but I'll tell it anyway. Seems as though I took my pet anteater on a plane. He was sitting in the passenger seat, and the whole time we were flying over Boston, he was licking the window. You see, he thought all you little people down there were ants. And he was right. You are all ants. Now, if elected, I hope people will never say that I abuse the power of my office. And if they do say that I am abusing the power of my office, they will be hearing from the IRS. If elected, I hope you do not think of me, in the words of novelist Henry Adams, as an impotent, transient stick insect, a plaything of the influence of others. I'm hoping I'll be more like the cockroach that you long to crush, just as I long to crush you, should you defy my will. Like I said before, I am a populist, but I do not wish to appeal to angry, resentful people. I do, excuse me. Things really do go better with Coca-Cola. As I was saying, I do not wish to appeal to angry, resentful people. I do not promote a populist economic agenda.
or an evangelical family values agenda. To me, populism is just a good buzzword, that's all. But I should mention for the benefit of all you gun owners out there that I like to drive my beat-up old American-made pickup truck with a homemade license plate that says militia. And I take extra joy in parking this vehicle in front of police stations and the FBI branch office in Boston and the Pentagon down in Washington, D.C. Actually, I think the Pentagon's in Langley, Virginia, but no matter. Anyway, in other words, I hope I'm really connecting with my natural constituency. Kooks. In other words, I'm not left or right, just mediocre. Which is how I hope to attract volunteers. Now, all you volunteers out there, I promise if you volunteer for my campaign, I will feed you Chinese food with no monosodium glutamate. That's a promise I can keep. Because I only go dumpster diving at all of the best health food restaurants. Additionally, if elected, I promise I won't make intelligent decisions. I'll just give you what you want. I won't give you government by the uneducated. I'll give you government by the indifferent. Now, some have said that complacency is the enemy of progress. I'm too lazy to go and look up that word complacency in the dictionary, but, well, I just thought I'd throw it in. Anyway, because I have no endorsements from the media, even though I'm just as cynical as they are, I can position myself as an outsider in this race. I can afford to bide my time, for I am a patient man. My motto is, Lord, give me patience. Now! Anyway, it is my cynicism and infamy which are my chief qualifications for a high office. How do I intend to win? I intend to spoon-feed lazy reporters with lies about my opponents. Now, here are some of the lies that my opponents have been spreading about me. It saddens me to repeat these slanders and lies, but some say that I drive a foreign car, that I fathered an illegitimate son, that I released a convicted murderer on furlough, that I had electroshock therapy, that I get free cable TV, that I steal newspapers intended for recycling and sell them, that I blew my paycheck at the dog track, that I used drugs, that I was arrested for drunk driving on a suspended license, that I trafficked in pornographic videos, that I raised taxes, cut police, resisted arrest, took junkets at taxpayer expense, that I believe in a double standard, visit prostitutes regularly, run red lights, eat veal, steal pennies from a blind man's cup. To all of these charges I say, where's your proof that will stand up in court, you filthy monkeys? Anyway, in this race for president, I expect the media will either ignore me, crucify me, or lionize me. By lionize me, I mean that they'll feed me to the lions. I will say this, no matter what my opponents or the media say about me, I will promise this. I would never sell my country out. But then again, nobody's made me any particularly attractive offers yet either. Now, every political speech must have a tagline. The tagline for this speech is tagline. Also, repetition and rhetoric. Also, repetition and rhetoric. The purpose of my speech is to offer up new ideas dressed up as cliches. For after all, it is not the system I despise, it's politics. I see a cockroach. Marvin. If you think I've spoken long enough, I will make a deal with you. If you pay me $100, you will not have to listen to the rest of this speech. I'll pretend like I'm sending you on an important errand, and everyone will be impressed. Well, having listened this far, it's obvious that you're for me and I'm for you. So what are you waiting for? After all, if the election were held today, it would be November. And now I'd like to ask you all, sincerely, am I creating the impression of sincerity? In this race for the presidency, I've had to ask myself some hard questions, like, why am I running at all? Do I have a chance to win? No. What resources do I need? More than I'll ever be given. Why do I want to run? Well, for the hell of it, I reckon. I'm not sure. And most of all, can I make a difference? Well, I sincerely hope not. Because I just want to make trouble. Benjamin Bubar has said that the Democrats make more noise, but the Republicans leave more of a mess. Well, I am both noisy and messy, you'll be glad to know. Maybe that's why I want to run. In 1980, Ronald Reagan defined the presidential race with a simple question. Now, let me ask you that question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Well, I hope not. Otherwise, how could I dupe you into voting for me? In this race, I hope to appeal to the electorate through the power of ideals. I'm sorry, ideals? Did I say that? I meant ideas. Oh, ideals. Oof, oof. I hope to appeal to you through the power of ideals. Oh, I did it again. Ideas, ideas, damn it. I hope to appeal to you through the power of ideas. Therefore, I take as my motto that old political axiom, a good slogan beats a good solution. Because, and again I quote, an ounce of image is worth a pound of ideas. Now, I may be running as a part of a third party, but I am neither second rate nor third rate. I am fourth rate. But I'm asking for your vote all the same. Bill Simon has said, bad politicians are sent to Washington by people who don't vote. I'm asking you to reverse that trend and vote for me. For once, let it be said that a bad politician was sent to Washington because people did vote. If you do vote for me, I promise immediate action. On the day I'm elected, if elected, I will send each and every one of you a shiny new penny. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Now, you may ask me, why didn't I run in the Democratic or Republican primaries? My answer is simple. I didn't leave the two-party system. I was kicked out. But I swear, I thought the paper ballots were scratch pads, and that's why I wrote my name on every single one of them. I say this. Regardless of my outsider status, I will fight on. I was a fighter in the past. I'll fight in the future. If I'm not elected, I'll fight anyway. Let's face it, I just like to fight. And let me say this. If you don't want progress, vote for me. If you don't want much of anything, vote for me. I promise I'll never let you down. Now, I also promise this. I will never underestimate your intelligence. At least, not until after the election. Now, every politician has to have a slogan, a rationale, and a motto. My slogan is, I'm a politician too. My rationale? Honest I am. And my motto can be summed up in 8 words. I'm innocent and the district attorney knows it. But I operate under a great handicap. Not the felony conviction, though I hope to reverse that decision on appeal. No, my handicap is the fact that I'm an outsider. And unlike all the other outsiders, I have the lack of money to prove it. Folks, an outsider like me finds out soon enough that politics is full of name-calling, lies, and gossip. Now, these things do not deter me. They are why I am in the race. I enjoy name-calling, lies, and gossip. Now, in politics, an outsider like me soon discovers that in a political campaign, the truth is in short supply. That is why I intend to ration it very carefully. My philosophies are also those of an outsider. I've never betrayed you before. Why not give me a chance? You don't expect a politician to be honest, and if elected, I will not buck a winning trend. In asking you to vote for me, I am appealing to your sense of fair play and intelligence. Give me job. I want it. It's mine. Give me job. That is the big truth of my campaign. Now, some have asked, can an outsider, if elected, effectively govern? I respond, I am not a maverick. I am a bipartisan. That means that as president, I'll veto everything that doesn't tickle my fancy. If a little gridlock is a good thing, then as president, I'll be the hottest thing to come down the pike since political action committees. As an outsider in this race, I've got nothing to hide. I also don't have an awful lot to show you. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Then again, why bother? You'll find out soon enough. The rules of the game of politics have changed. I am running because, like most Americans, I need a job. Any job. And just because I was not born into inherited wealth, that's no reason why I shouldn't start at the top. Now, as your leader, I promise to get you to do what I want you to do, whether you like it or not. And if you complain, who cares? I'll be calling the shots. I must say this. I am not addicted to alcohol or narcotics. I have not touched a drop of alcohol in 5 years. I have touched several bottles of alcohol and drained them of their contents, but I can assure you that I have never touched a drop of alcohol in 5 years. Now, as for the narcotics, I can quit anytime I want to. But I am addicted to an ideal. My ideal is simple. When I say frog, you jump. As your president, I didn't see you jumping. As your president, I hope at all times to be honest and in complete control. Though, to tell you the truth, I'll settle for complete control. But never fear. As president, I will not bite the hand that feeds me. The meat is usually more tender and juicy further up the arm. Now, as president, I will refuse to be a poster boy for bloated liberalism or conservatism. But I won't mind being a poster boy for the bloated in general. To tell you the truth, I always wanted to be a poster boy, even though I'm not quite sure what exactly that is. Now, as president, I promise I will always know the difference between the truth and a lie. Of course, I won't always act on it, but I promise I will always know the difference. As president, I promise to give you the government you deserve. But don't ask me to elaborate on that right now. As president, I will restore our country's credibility. But don't ask me how I intend to do it. Finally, as president, I will never lie to you. Of course, you know I'm lying. But can I speak frankly for a moment? It will probably be the only time I ever do so. What really gets me, is that malefactors of great wealth and corporate polluters continue to befoul the air we breathe, the water we drink, the environment we'll be leaving as a legacy for not only our children, not only our children's children, but also for our children's 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 children's. You know what I mean. Anyway, I'm quoting the title of an old Moody Blues album. Anyway, it's a shame how these corporate polluters continue to make money by destroying our ecosystem. What really gets me is that they're cutting in on my racket, see? And it's not right. And that reminds me of yet another seemingly interminable anecdote, which has only the most tangential connection to what I've just said. On the way over here, 3 chubby little girls at a bus stop took one look at me and sneezed. The woman I sat next to on the subway train started coughing. And now you're all staring at me and not saying anything. I don't know, maybe everyone is allergic to me. Well, I will deny this charge. At the very least, I will try to make myself heard over the sounds of your coughing and sneezing. You know, I was hoping to make headline news with this announcement of my candidacy, but right now, I'm just trying to avoid being arrested for vagrancy. So at this time, I will avoid asking for money. I do not want you to give me your money. I want you to give me your support. And if your support happens to take the form of a cash contribution, preferably in $20 bills with non-consecutive serial numbers, if your support takes the form of a cash contribution, I will have to adjust to that. And I will say that although I am reluctant to take your hard-earned money, I am certainly not too proud to accept it. After all, as we know, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, as is greed. Okay, let's knock off the happy horse shit and just give me the money. Sheesh. But I ask you, what do the Republicans have to offer the American people? The tune they sing is just an old-fashioned love song playing on the radio. And of course, their number 1 artist is Rush Limbaugh. And what the Democrats have to offer is just the same old song with a different bleed since they've been gone. Do-do-do-do-do. Yeah. Anyway, as an independent candidate, I have never been accused of taking junkets at the taxpayer's expense. I don't even like junket, actually. I've never been accused of misuse of public funds, although there are a great many private funds that perhaps I have been very injudicious in dealing with. And I have never been accused of cronyism, basically because everybody hates my guts. Now, I've never been accused of taking junkets. I've never been accused of misuse of public funds. I've never been accused of cronyism. And once again, all I ask is that you give me a chance. As an independent candidate, I haven't lied on my resume. Actually, I'm not really sure what a resume is or how to write one. And I have not plagiarized. But then again, I can barely read, so I couldn't, even if I wanted to. As an independent candidate, I have never voted for my own pay raise, voted for higher taxes, or been involved in a scandal. But once again, I am pleading with you. Just give me a chance. And in my campaign, I solemnly promise that I will never commit the sin of asking for your money only once. And I promise that I will not keep sloppy financial records. I won't keep any records at all. I promise to account for every penny you give me. I promise that every red cent of your hard-earned money will go straight into my pockets, where it will be safe and, incidentally, warm. And I won't make any promises I can't keep. I won't make any promises at all, except the ones that will get you to vote for me. And furthermore, I pledge that if I win $100 million in the lottery, I will give you $50. By the way, as an outsider to politics, I've never even been elected dog catcher. And if your dog could vote, I'm sure that he'd thank me on election day. Now, if elected, I promise to always keep my hands where you can see them. As president, I propose to make minor adjustments which change nothing, in keeping with a great tradition. I promise, as president, to lay my cards on the table, even if the Democrats and Republicans refuse to do so. In other words, I plan to spend most of my time playing solitaire. Or maybe I'll have a video poker game installed in the Oval Office, just as a change of pace. Now, in this race for president, I can win only by succeeding. I can succeed only by winning. I can succeed only by succeeding. I can win only by winning. You get the idea. Now, some have said that the electorate is disgruntled. I say they grunt like pigs. Some say that the non-voters now outnumber the voters. I say to all you non-voters that if all of you people who refuse to vote should refuse to vote for me, I won't get any votes at all. And then I'll be right back where I started. And to all you non-voters, I have this to say. I promise, if elected, to sweep the stables clean, even though they haven't been used in about 70 years, and it's the janitor's job anyway. Now, all across the land, as the millennium draws to a close, naysayers, prophets of doom, and gloomy gusses talk about the end. I prefer to focus on the beginning of the end. I do not intend to dwell upon the mistakes I've made in the past. No, my friends, I intend instead to dwell upon the mistakes I intend to make in the future. Now, here's my plea. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for me. It was Richard Nixon, that seasoned politician, who said, never eat before a speech. I say, never eat before a speech by one of my opponents, or you risk losing your lunch. And now, to my Anglo-Saxon friends, I quote the words that the words that Winston Churchill made famous. I have nothing to offer except blood, sweat, toil, and tears. And needless to say, I won't be opening up a gourmet restaurant anytime soon. And to my Hispanic friends who ask me if I know any Spanish, I know only a few phrases, but I believe they convey the gist of my message. Crisco, dos cerveza, porquito puerco, empleaños, laven los manos, por favor. Which translates to me, Crisco, 2 beers, Porky Pig, employees, please wash your hands. And that about sums my message up. You see, when giving a speech, I always make it a point to know exactly who I'm talking to. In my case, given my lack of media coverage and the fact that this is being broadcast on cable access, virtually nobody. In politics, sometimes it doesn't pay to be too smart. My friends, in the course of my campaign, I assure you that I will never be accused of that mistake. By the way, if there are any reporters present, I have this to say. I have here in my hand my palm. And so go tell your editors to stop the presses because I can lead you to an enormous scoop. It's at a nearby construction site attached to a steam shuttle. Now, I'm well aware that all of the cigar-chomping political professionals have been calling me a loose cannon. But I will say this. At least I've got balls, begging the pardon of the ladies. This much I admit. I am stubborn, self-aggrandizing, and impatient. But these defects can be employed to my advantage once I am elected and forced to deal with congressional leaders like myself. As for the charge that I evade the issues, I say, don't worry about me, I'm all right on all the issues. I will admit that I have a problem with my credibility, but my credibility is enhanced by admitting that I have a problem with it. Friends, I am not expected to get even one vote in this race. So if I do get one vote, it will constitute a victory. And I will get one vote because, friends, I intend to vote for myself. Now, I am facing enormous odds in this election. Odds of 260 million to 1, to be exact. Moreover, the system opposes me. Washington's Beltway pundits oppose me. The elites oppose me. Let's make a long story short. Every political faction opposes me. And for those of you who detest politics, that should be reason enough to give your vote to me on election day. Now, with all this opposition facing me, I will say in my defense that I am a self-made man. Then again, so was Frankenstein. And if I could get him as my running mate, I probably would. Then, if the graveyards in Cook County should cast thousands of votes for me, my opponents would be hard-pressed to holler fraud. Now, I believe that at this time in our history, as perhaps at no other time, the American people are out of touch, out of sync with their elected government. Well, I am out of sync with the American people. So that makes me the perfect candidate. So elect me because I admit it. Now, as I ask you for your support, you may say, well, I'm not ready to make a decision yet. Well, that's fine. But when I become president, don't come sucking up to me for favors. Because I am trying to run a grassroots campaign. And if the worms are the only ones who will vote for me, so be it. Now, my key issues. My key issues in this race are crime, economic development, education, and the environment. I don't have any opinions about them. They're just my key issues. Now, having to listen to a discussion of these important issues is hard work, so I won't bother you with that. As an incentive to get you to vote for me, instead I was planning to throw candy at you. Unfortunately, on the way over here, my sweet tooth got the better of me. I am for change. People often say, the system is money. I am not of the system. I have no money. I don't even have any spare change. Do you? Can I have it? I'll take stamps and subway tokens too. Now, I do not propose to get into a grunting match with my opponents. I am perfectly content to sit here and grunt all by myself. Want to hear? I believe that this is where I belong. I also believe that if you really belong to a place, people will put up with you. But if you really do not belong to a place, you will get lots of parking tickets. You know, there's an old saying in politics, winners are forgiven, losers are forgotten. And I'm not even on the radar screen. And so, the best argument to vote for me is to send a message. Because I have no chance to win. That, in fact, is the message. You know, I'm not a politician, but I hope someday to play one on television. Now, regardless of my chances of winning, I will say this about the race. I will not lie to you, although I would bend the truth a speck if I thought I could get away with it. Basically, I believe the more outrageously I behave, the more press coverage I will get. It may not be good press coverage, but then again, you're not all good people. But regardless of what they say about me, I will say this. I have no outstanding warrants for my arrest. I do have a few mediocre ones, but that is a mere bag of shells. Now, people accuse me of being gratuitously nasty. Why? There's not a nasty bone in my body. Well, maybe one or two. But I broke them in a fit of rage. And some people say I'm crazy. To that charge, I answer, meow. Be right back. Anyway, that reminds me of an anecdote. You know, folks, growing up, we weren't very well-to-do in my family. As a matter of fact, the only time we'd have chicken is when the preacher man came to visit. Other times we'd have steak and caviar. But it was only when the preacher man came a-calling that we'd have chicken, and usually that would be on a Sunday. Well, one Sunday my mother pulled me aside just before supper time and said to me in her most kindly voice, "Son, if you embarrass me in front of the preacher, I'll beat the tobacco juice out of you. As a matter of fact, I'll snatch you bald-headed." Well, the preacher man came to dinner that very night, and he kept spearing the best pieces of chicken for himself. Well, finally I couldn't take no more, and I pipes up and I says, "Mama, the preacher man's going to eat up all the best pieces of chicken." Well, the next thing I know, I wakes up, and I'm in the hospital, in traction. It's late at night, and the little boy next to me keeps moaning about his little red wagon. The nurse, she comes in and says, "And what do you want to be when you grow up, little boy?" And I say to her, "A jet pilot." And she says, "That's impossible. You wear corrective lenses, and your vision is too poor. I suggest you become an air traffic controller instead." Well, my vision may be poor, but I've been places and done things. I've eaten in fancy hotels, and I've seen the hootie owl. Yes, I have. And well, regardless of my myopia and acute astigmatism, which prevented me from fulfilling my dream of becoming a jet pilot, a job at which I would have performed heroically and well, doing proud by this great land, regardless of short-sighted naysayers, and I use the pun intentionally, let it be said that I have a vision of a president who has the courage and will to display sternness abroad and compassion at home. Or maybe it's compassion abroad and sternness at home. Or maybe sternness both at home and abroad. Whatever you want. I will say whatever you want to get you to vote for me. That is my promise. And that, my friends, is my vision. Now, that is my vision, for I am on the side of the real people. And I promise, if elected, not to appoint any robots or androids to my cabinet. I consulted my computer on this matter, and that is what it advised. And my response was, I hear and I obey, O Great One. Furthermore, I stand on record as opposing and denouncing hidebound, purblind, beltway elitism. At least, that's what my advisors in Washington, D.C. told me would sell. It is these elites who run things who are the enemy. No, wait a minute. Maybe that should be, it are these elites who run things who is the enemy. Whatever. What I'm really trying to say is, let me run things, then I will be the enemy. But at least I'll admit it. And let me go on record as saying this, even though there's nobody here to write it down. If elected, I pledge to rat out my fellow politicians, air my grudges in public, and use dirty words and politically incorrect phraseology on camera. In that way, you will know that everyone in Washington will hate my guts and long to see my head on a platter. Although I have never spent more than 6 hours in Washington, D.C., I am convinced that I know how to solve all of its problems. In other words, I pledge, if elected, to behave like a typical American tourist. Now, how do I respond to my opponent's criticisms that I'm weak and indecisive? Actually, I'm of two minds about that, so let me get back to you on that one. But I will say this, to those who have accused me of being a hothead. I am actually in the mainstream of hotheads. Additionally, I pledge, if elected, to do better than my best. Of course, according to all the laws of science and logic, this is impossible, which is why I feel so confident in making such a promise. Remember, meat is not meat till it is in the pan. I still can't figure out what that means, but it does have a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Now, my opponents have accused me of not taking this race seriously. I would like to say that it is they who are not serious. These are serious charges, after all, and my opponents have yet to respond to them. Of course, I've only just now made these accusations, so in all fairness, there's a reason why they haven't yet responded. Anyhow, I hope my unsubstantiated countercharges will distract you from what my opponents originally said. What was that exactly? Jeepers, I forget. Well, if I can't remember, then it must not have been very important. But what is important is that many companies are laying off workers due to competition from abroad. If elected, I pledge to find that broad and give her a good talking to. Additionally, I pledge to say other provocative things like that so I can get on TV, where I can say more provocative things, so I can appear on the lecture circuit and say even more provocative stuff and get paid for it in the bargain. Now, too often people talk about the arrogance of the powerful. I would like right now to discuss the arrogance of the powerless. I will crush them for being arrogant, and I will get away with it because they can't fight back. Anyhow, on the one hand, I am asking for your votes. On the other hand, I shouldn't have to ask. You should have already gotten the message by now. I deserve your vote. Otherwise, fuck you and the boat you rolled in on. Oh, I'm sorry. I must have gotten Bob Dole's campaign speech mixed in with my papers. Terribly sorry about that. You know, of course, when I said I would crush the powerless, I hope you realize that I was only speaking metaphorically. Actually, I am a man of tolerance and peace. And I often find myself thinking in the course of my philosophical ruminations, wouldn't it be wonderful if men and women could stop fighting? But then I realized that it would be an even better world if men and men would stop fighting. And if and when the time should come that women and women should start fighting, I would be glad to pay a premium price for a videotape of such an incident for my library. Anyway, let's get back to brass tacks. It has often been said that voters are suspicious of wits and cynics. Well, I am willing to be a stupid optimist, at least until after the election. Anyhow, I would like to state that just because I am Italian, this does not mean I am totally connected to organized crime. I am only half Italian, so I am only partially connected to disorganized crime. I want you to know that you are the most important people I am going to talk to all day. I need you to play a leadership role in my campaign. In other words, I want your money. At this time, you can be a major player in my campaign. In other words, I want a lot of your money. You are all great Americans. What I mean to say is, not only do I want your money, but in addition, I want the money of your friends as well. And if you wish to send me this money, send it in care of The Wrong Hero, Cambridge Community Television, Prospect Street, Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02139. Please don't send cash. Make it in the form of checks and write out the checks to my campaign manager, Francis DiMenno, FrancisDiMenno. Now, the check should read something like, pay to the order of Francis DiMenno the sum of $1,000. Although you needn't feel constrained by limitations on campaign expenditures, because those laws only apply to people who are requesting and soliciting matching government funds, which I am not. So, you know, if you feel like throwing in a check for 2, 3, maybe even 4 million, there's nothing really stopping you. Make sure, though, that the check is good, because I don't want to be inconvenienced with going to the bank and discovering that the check's no good, and you know, having policemen come and take me away. That kind of delay would be a crucial impediment to my attempt to get the truth out to the American people. So I really wish that if you're going to write me a check, and remember, make that check out to Francis DiMenno, DiMenno. If you are going to make out a check, make sure that you have the funds in your checking account to cover it. Otherwise, well, not only will you be hit with a $15 or $20 surcharge, but, well, you might be arrested for fraud if it's a significantly large amount that you're bouncing there. But, you know, the thing is, if you do write out a check, don't post-date it. Date it, in fact, a day before you actually send it, you know, just to make absolutely sure that there's no delays in the important business of processing this check. Because you wouldn't want to slow down the wheels of commerce by any degree, simply because you've made the error of dating the check one day in advance of when I actually get it. But on the other hand, if funds are kind of short and you're sort of just squeaking by until the next payday, you can post-date the check to the day after you have the funds to cover it, okay? I mean, you know, I don't want to be a hard ass about this, after all. I understand that some people don't have unlimited resources to squander on tangential 18th party candidates like myself. So I'm willing to show a little bend in this situation. It is just this kind of broad-mindedness that will characterize my presidency if and when I am elected to that high office. Now, some have said that I don't have a chance to win. Now, if I really believed that, do you think for 1 minute I'd be sitting here sucking up to you animals? Now, my beliefs may be fundamentally wrong, but at least you have to admire the stubbornness with which I adhere to them. By the way, regardless of what you may think, I am no stranger to public appearances. I have been the featured attraction at many a county fair, also at many freak shows and roadside zoos. After all, a gig's a gig. Now, if elected, I promise to bring in all the best people. Of course, I'll send them all home the very next day, but after all, it's the thought that counts. Besides, how smart can they be if they're willing to work for me? It has been said that we live in a troubled time for civilized discourse. Therefore, I suggest you shut the fuck up and let me talk. Fuck the rules. I'm making this up as I go along. You know, you're so boring, I could snore. You're so stupid, I could scream. But please, don't take it personally. I will declare this. I will candidly and openly prevaricate. As I say to you, in running this race, that I am after the swing vote. Tomorrow, I'll be speaking to the chimps in the monkey house. You see, I am the only honest man in politics, and I must admit, I stole that slogan from someone else. I will say to you now that, if elected, my foreign policy will be to enthrone tyrants and doom freedom. In other words, it will be business as usual at the State Department. And here's where I stand on the other major issues. I favor gun control, except for assault weapons and armor-piercing bullets. As for school prayer, I believe there should be a moment of silence in public schools and a moment of noise in Bible schools. I support all affirmative action quotas, but only when they favor me. I oppose the death penalty, except for people I just don't like. I think there should be a tax on capital gains of 100%, so nobody can be rich except me. Now, do you know what capital gains are? Well, neither do I. Who cares? In addition, I support a totally unbalanced budget and abortion wrongs. Now, my beliefs reflect no ideological commitments. They are merely common sense. Not because I can prove it, but because I say so. And if I cannot appeal to your bedrock common sense, I will appeal to your shifting and irrational group prejudices. Now, you listen to me and listen good. I ain't gonna let no slick, slippery, lifted pinky finger Madison Avenue ad executive package what I have to say. I don't believe in that. Besides, they cost too much. In this election, I promise that I will promise something for every city, town, and community I visit. I will admit, I'm operating under a lot of handicaps in this race. I'm old, I'm repulsive, I'll steal anything that's not nailed down, and I'm too smart and cynical to tell the truth. In other words, I have at least one thing in common with all of the other candidates in this presidential race. And that, in a nutshell, is why you should elect me. Because you'd be getting all of the presidential candidates for the price of one, in me. Now, I have not gotten into politics to make money. Surely, I must be the world's biggest fool. But it is my belief that both major political parties are swarming with blood-sucking leeches who pander to special interest lobbies. Both major parties pander to federal tyranny. But let me make this clear. I am against anti-government violence. It is my belief that only the government should have a monopoly on violence. Although in certain special cases, sports teams should also have some say in the use of sanctioned violence. Otherwise, it is my firm belief that I know what the people want, because I am the wrong hero, and I am the avatar of the moron zeitgeist. I pledge to you that if elected, our bloated and antiquated federal government will be remade in my bloated and antiquated image. I like to think of my potential presidency as the triumph of the school bully. One of my very first acts as president will be to follow progressive Albania's lead and outlaw all passenger automobiles. My slogan will be, "Friends don't let friends drive." And now I say to you, don't elect men in bow ties who care more about themselves than you, as reflected in their choice of sartorial neckwear. And don't elect men in neckties knotted so tight that they cut off the flow of blood to their brain. Elect me, a man with no neck at all, and avoid these potential pitfalls. Now, people have asked me, why am I running for president? And my answer is simple and straight to the point. I am running for president so I can stay out of jail. For one of the terms of my probation is that I actively seek full-time employment. And I will say this. I may always be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. I think. In this great country we call America, as opposed to some other name like former British colonies or Disney World or Frank Sinatra land, in these great United States of ours, there are limits to what we ought to be willing to tolerate. My job is to test those limits to the breaking point. My beliefs are simple and straight to the point. Advertising is the Stalinization of commodities. Commodities are our household gods. Big business is the religion of selfishness. And with these beliefs, you can bet that I won't be picking up any corporate sponsors anytime soon. Although I would like to say a word for Coca-Cola and their fine line of caffeinated, heavily concentrated sugar and water products. What do we have here? Carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup and or sucrose, caramel color, phosphoric acid, natural flavors, caffeine. Well, you know, let's see, 140 calories, total fat, 0%, well that's good, it's a fat-free product. Total sodium, 50 milligrams, that's good, even if you are on a diet, you know, it's not good to have too much salt. Total carbohydrates, 39 grams. Sugars, 39 grams. Protein, 0 grams. Well, if I drank 7 of these boys, I guess I'd have 100% of my minimum daily requirement of carbohydrates and probably 7 times as much sugar as I should be drinking. You know, this isn't really Coca-Cola, it's actually whiskey. Let's see now, where was I? Yeah. I am neither of the left nor of the right. I believe a socialist is just a hobo with a PhD. I believe a conservative is a socialist who wants all the money for himself. And I believe that the United States is a uniquely great country where you can say whatever you want just so long as you do what you're told. In my candidacy, I hope to raise the level of public discourse by intoning a childish, inoffensive public policy mantra like jobs for Americans or say no to drugs, until the gullible and hypnotized masses follow me, cattle-like, to the path leading to their own short-sighted and basically idiotic consensus mentality tribal slaughterhouse. So get with the program. What are you waiting for? I say, look beyond politics. Follow the man with the snappy slogans who knows or looks like he knows what he's doing. Now, while I'm on the subject of what I believe, let me say this. I believe the American people have their whole future ahead of them once they put their past behind them. Of course, they certainly would look foolish if they tried to put their future behind them and their past ahead of them, which is actually a pretty good description of the Democrats and Republicans, respectively. The Democrats try to put their future behind them, and the Republicans try to put their past ahead of them. I didn't explain this, but because I think you're slow, I explain it because I don't really understand it myself. Anyway, let me also say this. I, for one, am sick of the sanctimonious liars who rise to positions of great power in this country. Don't we deserve some avowedly godless, blasphemous, and profane liars for a change? If elected president, I intend to address the source of all our woes, big government, while doing nothing about corporate control of big government. Because nobody is crazy enough to take on the big corporations, not even me. So my policy will be to have less big government and more complete corporate control. My candidacy really comes down to this. Why am I running? The answer? Who the hell knows? Now, if elected, I predict some soreheads will say, he's ruining the country. And others will say, that may be, but at least he's doing his best. Now, right now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. My strategy for this race is simple. Divide, and then divide again, just for the hell of it. It has been said that the whole secret of politics can be summed up as knowing who hates who. Well, I hope it's no secret that I hate you and everybody hates me. Anyway, in the course of my candidacy, I do not intend to propose mock solutions to non-existent threats. I promise real solutions to non-existent threats. As president, I pledge to abolish the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, because that will get me a lot of votes in the South. And I also pledge to never abolish alcohol, tobacco, or firearms, because then Southerners would have nothing to do in their spare time. Now, I did not get into this race as a hobby. There are better hobbies than running for president. Making model airplanes in a room with no ventilation has always been one of my favorites. And I did not get into this race to wear a crown of thorns. I can't even stand to wear a hat most of the time. You know, this hat's really bothering me. It's too small. I got it, by the way, well, I didn't get it, but someone got it for me at Keezer's in Cambridge. It's kind of dirty now. I'm sort of hoping they'll exchange it for a larger one. But they might not. But then again, they might. You never know. They might just like get their little half brush, brush it off, say, oh, okay. Because that's the way they are. Anyway, I don't care if the corrupt political culture of Washington, D.C. refuses to accept me, just so long as they let me in on some of that corruption. I see my role in this race as that of social critic. Now, how do we define a social critic? Basically, a social critic is the fella who hopes that everyone will be successful in their endeavors until they actually are, at which point they sneer that they are selling out and they refuse to have anything more to do with it. Americans are demanding to know if I have any medical problems. Well, actually, one American is demanding to know, my insurance agent. Well, I'm going to address this issue in a completely open fashion. One time, I had a stupid hemorrhage. That's because I wasn't smart enough to have a cerebral hemorrhage. Now you may ask, if I'm smart enough to be president, how could I be dumb enough to run for office? Well, I am in this race for 1996 because Phil Gramm thinks that if he buys everybody a piece of cake, the GOP will think the primaries are his birthday party. I am in this race because Steve Forbes wants to play polo with Bob Dole's head. I am in this race because Bob Dornan is to Pat Buchanan what Curtis LeMay was to George Wallace. I am in this race because Lamar Alexander started wearing plaid at around the time of the Bay City Rollers, and now he's still wearing plaid and everybody thinks he's trying to imitate the grunge look. And I am in this race most of all because I want to watch. Now, some people say I exude an air of silky menace. I find that very amusing, and I will have to hunt them down and destroy them at my leisure. Now, just when you thought you were thoroughly bored, I would like to bore you further by quoting from the Federalist Papers, number 10 to be specific. Paragraph 186, sentence number 3. It was James Madison who said, "Enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm." If elected, I would not be so arrogant as to attempt to prove that this great statesman was in any way mistaken. And now I'd like to take this time to discuss a serious subject. This is a great, free country with a rich tradition of imprisoning outlaws. Now, there are over 1 million Americans in United States prisons. America now imprisons more people per capita than Russia or South Africa. And you know, and some soreheads still insist that there's no such thing as progress. And now I'd like to discuss another serious topic, Washington, D.C. I do not want to move to Washington, D.C. To me, Washington is an evil city, overrun by fat cat corporate lobbyists who want to bribe you with suitcases crammed full of cash, naked, love-starved bimbos, and all expenses paid junkets to Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. I do not want to go to such an evil city, but if you elect me as your president, I promise I will do my duty and reluctantly take up residence there, even though I am shocked at some of the sordid goings-on there. For I am an honorable man. In my campaign, I will not pander to the religious right just to get access to their mailing lists, large cash contributions, and voters who are fanatically loyal to their cause. But I think that I should mention that Jesus Christ, God Almighty, is my campaign manager. I was going to pick Einstein as my campaign manager, but I was afraid he knew too much. As president, I promise to be a strong leader in foreign policy. As for my views on Bosnia, I say that blood cannot wash away blood. But it sure beats sitting there watching it dry, leaving a stain that's very difficult to get out. People have accused me of being a little Caesar. In my defense, I must go on record as saying that I prefer to be addressed as Big Caesar, boss of bosses. And I do not consider abject kowtowing to be in questionable taste either. People accuse me of wanting to be president for the wrong reasons. I have two reasons for wanting to be president: the good one and the real one. I want to be president and go to Washington, D.C. for the same reason that Willie Sutton robbed banks, because that's where the money is. In the course of my speech, I hope I've impressed you with my brilliantly boring comments. This race can be defined by one word: integrity. And I want you to remember something. Integrity is like oxygen. You need it to live, but it can blow up in your face. Also, it catches fire rather quickly. Also, if you mix integrity with hydrogen, you get water. Actually, maybe I should have quit while I was still ahead. That last one doesn't seem quite right. But if I wanted to quit while I was still ahead, I would never have opened my mouth in the first place. Now, in this race, I have too much integrity to demonize my opponents. Besides, I'm afraid that if I do, they will cast a satanic spell on me. Now, I will not say that my opponent's supporters are the tools of Satan, but I will say that I know where those devils live. Now, let us pause for a moment to reflect upon those who are hearing impaired. I'd love to learn how to talk in sign language so I could figure out yet another way to beg for votes and money. People say I contradict myself, but then again, maybe I don't. I will say this: I have no plans to lie to you for now. People say I'm tactless. I like to think of myself as fearless. Fearless because I speak out and say things that other people only whisper. Things like, "Hey mister, your fly is open." Things like, "Quiet please, this is a library." Things like, I'm really very sorry, but I got laryngitis. If elected president, I pledge right now to always tell the truth. Of course, there is always the possibility that later I will pledge something a little less appealing. What my third party candidacy is really about is my megalomania and sense of personal omnipotence. And if you dare to say me nay, I will crush you like the filthy, odoriferous vermin that you so strongly resemble. At this stage in our glorious history, both mainstream parties are intellectually and morally bankrupt. I offer an alternative. I am only fiscally bankrupt. That's why your dollars long to be in my pocket. So give me your money, all of it. I am the ultimate special needs case. I am a minority of one. All the benefits should go to me. Now, if you wish to contribute to my campaign, and earlier I made this appeal, and I said you shouldn't send cash. Well, I think that if you fold it up into a really tiny little square and you wrap like something that looks like a personal letter around it or something, I think that it would be okay if you sent cash, but you're probably better off not sending coins. I think the smallest amount you should send should probably be $1. It's not that I look down on coins, it's just, well, they're heavy and it would be more trouble than it's worth. You could send a money order too. They're a lot easier to cash. I wouldn't mind taking traveler's checks either, as long as they're properly endorsed to my campaign manager, Francis DiMenno. That's FrancisDiMenno. He is not only the producer of this show, but also the Wrong Heroes campaign manager in this election. Now, if you hold on a minute, maybe I can get that address for you. A wise man once said, "We have enough food here to feed an army." That man was wiser than he knew, for in fact, an army will be arriving here very shortly to place you under arrest and eat all the food. Oh, and by the way, I couldn't find that address for Cambridge Community Television, but I just addressed it to Prospect Street. I'm sure that they'll be able to get it there. But anyway, in the meantime, or look it up in the phone book. Anyway, I'd like to tell you a little anecdote. When, during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln was rebuked for telling humorous anecdotes in the midst of carnage, he replied, "If I do not tell these stories, I will die." Now, just what in hell was that supposed to mean? Well, I am here to talk about the future. For a time it will amuse me to toy with you. I might as well tell you everything I know, for there is no way you can stop me now. I say, forget the future. It's just that simple, folks. Let's focus on the past and the present, which is becoming a part of the past even as you listen to this. Isn't that convenient? Now, I say the most important policy America can have as we embark upon the shoals of our obscure nautical metaphor can be summed up in 4 words. Stop breathing my oxygen. I invented oxygen in 1957, and it's mine. Do you hear me? Mine. I'll tell you what I'd really like. I'd like to see everybody unemployed so we can train robot slaves to do the job right. I will now tell you who I am and how I came to be, so I can be held up as an exemplar of your ridicule. Some ambition, huh? I have low self-esteem, but you probably don't want to hear about that now, do you? Remember when I told you that I would tell you a little bit about my background? Well, I guess now's a good time. My mother had to be a mother and a father both to me, because my father was a transvestite. He was a police captain who was into macrame. So often when I think back, I think about the 2 fateful words, if only. If only we could turn back the clock. If only we could suck smart bombs out of Iraq, napalm out of Vietnam, peacekeeping troops out of Korea, fat man out of Nagasaki, little boy out of Hiroshima. If only. If only we could take electricity away from millions of farmers, take venereal diseases away from sullen, sex-crazed owl hoots and naked aborigines. If only we could put all that gold right back where we found it. If only we could sail our ships backwards, back to where we all came from, the quickest way we know how. I say, if only. If only we had begun this yesterday. Because today is the day before tomorrow. I say, if only we could have begun this the day before yesterday. Because the day before tomorrow is too late. Because we're all going nowhere fast. And yet, it ill behooves us to ask how fast we're going if the destination is nowhere. It may be too late to do all these things, but it's never too late for America and the planet Earth to take a giant step backwards. Because remember, this country was born under a lucky star, and it felt so good when they pried it off of us. Remember also, when giants learn to dance, a lot of dwarves get crushed, and there's no way you can pay me enough to clean up that mess. And remember, you can't love God unless God loves himself. And that's why I think we need a new approach to government. I like to call it the SOSMEGO approach to government. Same old shit, my eyes glaze over. That is the approach to government I call the old betray. That government governs most, that governs least confidently. I say, it is not a new world order, it is an old betray. I say, it is not a new covenant, it is an old betray. I say, it is not a balanced budget, it is an old betray. An old choice based on eternal values, run by organically challenged senators who all wear gray fedoras bigger than their heads. The choice I offer is no choice at all. It is old. It is the same. It has never worked, and neither have I. And now you are angry, and that is good. Because remember, where there is no vision, the people are helpless, but the guy who sells smoked eyeglasses makes a fortune. How can you be blinded into swallowing the old betray? By doing nothing. Because yesterday was better than tomorrow will be. And it's our duty, our sacred duty, to be angry as hell all the time for no very good reason. And that leads back to the main theme, putting this country back to work. Even though everybody knows it's the people who do all the heavy lifting, while the country itself just sits there doing the crossword puzzle and drinking instant coffee made by taking hot water directly from the tap. Brr. So I say, forget about putting the country back to work. Let's focus in on the people. Now, as a people, we may be down on our luck, but don't count us out just yet. Thank you. We may be down on our luck for the moment, but we still have enough imagination and we're still strong enough to beg. Because this is a great country. Why? Because I say so. And here are some statistics I made up inside my head to prove it. Bob Dylan never uses deodorant. The Beach Boys produce 1% of all Stridex medicated pads. I'm sorry, they purchase 1%. Paul McCartney has never watched The Bill Cosby Show. Dragnet has been translated into 267 languages, including English. You can go and spend 99 cents at a fast food hamburger restaurant, or you can stay at home and hit a picture of your heart with a mallet and save yourself $1. Although many Americans believe that Charlie Brown is the leader of a charismatic cult numbering in the billions, the real power behind the throne is actually that cute little Snoopy. Americans are the rootinest, tootinest cowpokes who ever crushed ice in a coffee grinder. Where we spit, the sun don't shine. Yahoo! I went to my old school to see if I could see my initials that I had carved years ago, but the principal was wearing a toupee. I gave my mother a $50 parking ticket, even though I'm not a policeman and she doesn't drive. And I told her to pay up. Pronto. How's that for Spanish? I never told you the rest of my story about my father. My father was sentenced to be executed by asphyxiation. And as I stood in the execution chamber, I could not help but think, man, oh man, what a gas. For God had given me the chance to finally tell the old man, once and for all, that he was full of hot air. And I remember his last tender words to me, words he never got to hear from his own father. Here, kid, take these cigars. The one I got is a lifetime supply. I'd like to end on an upbeat note with a little story. It's the story of two frogs swimming in a vat of buttermilk. Never mind how they got there and what kind of maniac leaves humongous vats of buttermilk just sitting there Anyway, once there were these two frogs and they were swimming in a vat of buttermilk. And these little green machines were drowning, man. And the first frog said, I'm an old frog. I have to let my coffee cool before I drink it. And that frog drowned. What did you expect? The second frog, however, was Mr. Can-Do. And he kept swimming and a-swimming, and what do you suppose happened? Why, the farmer came out to the milking shed the following morning. And when you're a farmer, see, you spend a lot of time in places with names like the milking shed. And what do you suppose that farmer saw? You guessed it. Two dead frogs in a vat of butter. So what do you suppose he did? Why, that very morning, he had buttered frog's legs for breakfast. Well, I suggest we learn from the example of that wise old farmer and cultivate a taste for roadkill. Now, I am a candidate for the presidency, and I plan to campaign in all 50 states, and I would like to give you my impressions of each of our great 50 states. Well, Massachusetts, cranberry-flavored corn syrup, semi-literate wart healers, and the only culture is in their frozen yogurt, and that's probably dead too. Maine, bears, lumber, moose, sawmills, and dipsomaniacal truck farmers with missing fingers. Rhode Island, Vegas on the Atlantic. State symbol, the stinging jellyfish. A hotbed of quahogs and nepotism. The smallest state with the largest name, and it's under a near perpetual drizzle 7 months of the year. New Hampshire, a state where they don't pay taxes, where you can rub shoulders with mosquitoes, bankrupt condo owners, and black leather jacket wearing kill crazy heavy metal motorcycle outlaws. Vermont, maple trees, socialism, and sheep. Connecticut, guns, Yankee rednecks, Moonies, and Yale, the famous problem-solving think tank. Delaware, a wholly owned subsidiary of the DuPont Corporation. New Jersey, casinos, turnpikes, and fat cat professionals who live in stigma-free Pennsylvania. New York, to the east, New York City, which is hell, but at least all of your friends are there. To the west, Buffalo, home of blizzards, psychotics, Love Canal, and airborne parasites. In between, vast tracts of nothing, affectionately nicknamed the burned-over region. Pennsylvania, a state with a high proportion of decaying nuclear power plants, amphetamine-addled pensioners, unemployment lines, testosterone-befuddled right-wingers, and rusty steel mills that smell like rotten eggs. Ohio, home of fat presidents, money-hungry former astronauts, Standard Oil, and Kent State, whose slogan is, Kent satisfies best. Oh, and Ohio is also full of people who are jealous of swinging cosmopolitan Pittsburgh. West Virginia, an integrated state where whitewater rafting and black lung disease exist side by side with illiteracy and satellite dishes, kerosene lamps, and hazardous waste repositories, where the people get together on Saturday nights just for fun and try to outdo each other in a dust-eating contest. Indiana, corn, basketball, tragic stock car accidents, subpar vice presidents, and the Ku Klux Klan, not to mention a capital with the imaginative name of Indianapolis. Michigan, mosquito-infested lakes, Depression-era unemployment, and Detroit, the city that used to set itself on fire to celebrate the sacred holiday of Halloween. Wisconsin, badgers, cheese, cheap beer, and people named Lars. Illinois, home of Abraham Lincoln, murderous clowns, voting graveyards, and other homespun varieties of municipal corruption. Kentucky, this cheerful state, whose name means dark and bloodied ground, is where you'll find 4 a.m. happy hours, incessant bluegrass music, totally dysfunctional sixth-generation hillbillies, and a street named after Cassius Clay. Maryland, crab mallets, Spiro Agnew, and strip mining. Virginia, home of presidents who wore powdered wigs and buckles on their shoes, and filth-choked rivers with flounders so mutated they have one eye on each side of their head. North Carolina, where tobacco auctioneers and holy rollers spend all day trying to out-talk each other. South Carolina, Confederate monuments, high-level nuclear waste repositories, and other tourist attractions like radioactive tritium in the groundwater. Tennessee, Memphis had a song about it 34 years ago, and they're still talking about it. The Tennessee legislature was unsuccessful in convincing the Pope to make Elvis a saint, but there is now a movement to make Graceland the 51st state. Georgia, boiled peanuts, chicken mills, clay eaters, snake handlers, and attractive slums. Florida, Cuban fascists, cocaine residue on $20 bills, and Disney World. And did we mention hurricanes which attract criminally inclined construction workers? Alabama, peaches, high school football, magnolia blossoms, and sunstroke, and George Wallace. Mississippi, seceded from the Union in 1861. Just last year, though, they did get around to abolishing slavery, which is a plus. Louisiana, venereal disease, oil refineries, Cajuns, and legal outdoor puking. Arkansas, paper mills, feral hogs, segregated golf courses, catfish farms, and restaurants with names like Tubby's Trough. Oklahoma, substance-abusing American Indians, petrodollars, and Tulsa. Demographic center of the United States and a citadel of mediocrity. Texas, populated by pickup trucks with a spittoon on the dashboard, a gun rack in the back, and a drunken thug in cowboy boots behind the driver's wheel. New Mexico, deserts, macrame, pinto beans, and the world's largest radio telescope. What a distinction. Arizona, they moved London Bridge from London, presumably, so Indians can be weaned away from peyote and bingo and instead be exposed to fish and chips and William Shakespeare for the very first time. Missouri, home of Harry Truman, ragtime, toxic pesticides, and St. Louis, a city of people who are jealous of Kansas City. Also the home of black widow spiders, brown recluses, rattlesnakes, and any other pest you care to mention. Oh, gigantic sucking leeches and ticks, too. Don't forget them. Iowa, potatoes, right-wingers, and zinc. Minnesota, home of Bob Dylan, subarctic lumber villages, frostbite, and Walter Mondale. North Dakota, Indians with no money, towns with no people, and wells with no water. South Dakota, starving prairie dogs, drunken aborigines, and George McGovern. Nebraska, corn, locusts, insurance salesmen, and nobody can find it on a map or needs to. Kansas, prairies, wheat, and tornadoes in colorful black and white. Colorado, snow, mountains, boulders, people who couldn't make it in California, and Gary Hart. Wyoming, a land of 5-cent coffee, cattle, uranium, and approximately one intercontinental missile for every resident, so watch it. Montana means mountainous. How creative. Look for played-out copper mines, drunken cowboys, and 6 sheep for every inhabitant, for on the 7th day, even God rested. Idaho, silver mines, forest fires, concentration camps, alfalfa, and Mormons, and lots of Air Force bases, so be careful what you say about Idaho. Utah, Mormons, chewing gum, and challenging cosmopolitan Salt Lake City. Nevada, a 24-hour Providence, Rhode Island in the middle of a desert. California, a utopia founded on agribiz sucking up unprotected water tables, automobiles, avocados, illegal aliens, earthquakes, and pistachios, in roughly that order of importance. Oregon, salmon, beavers, lumber, and creepy murders. Washington State, apples, aluminums, paper mills, and more creepy murders, probably committed by felons who are convinced that plaid is the ne plus ultra of fashion wear. Alaska, full of people who write songs about rendered caribou fat and smoke lobelia all day long, which is exactly what I would do if I had the chance. Hawaii, luau's, pineapple plantations, psychotic security guards, speed freaks, volcanoes, and a variety of marijuana so potent that their alphabet only has 12 letters. And of course there are the United States territories like Haiti. Oh, how did that get in here? Puerto Rico, Guam, which is too small, and Washington, D.C., which is full of lobbyists and slum dwellers and 300 cars for every square mile of road, so if you laid every vehicle in the district end to end, you would probably have normal driving conditions. Well, we're about out of time here. I'm going to check and see just how much time we happen to have left here. Oh, we're down to the last 4 minutes. Well, isn't that grand? Well, then I'll have just enough time to read you my Bill of Wrongs, which I intend to pass into legislation. Article 1, worship me as you please. Article 2, say anything you darn well please, but clear it through my office. Article 3, stay at home and stare at the fire and don't bother me. Article 4, soldier boys can break into your home and rape your sisters for pemmican bars, and you can't do a darn thing about it, bub, because I confiscated your flintlock rifle. Article 5, people shall have the right to be tried over and over for a crime they did not commit, and to blurt out a phony confession at the drop of a hat, and someday this suicidal German guy will write a novel about it. Article 6, people shall enjoy the right to a secret and perpetual trial directed against them, their pals, and such legal counsel as they may hire to establish their guilt, all without their knowledge. And maybe you should forget you even heard this. Article 7, if you and me get into an argument over $20, you better fork it over pronto, chump, unless you want to be spitting your choppers out onto the tarmac. Article 8, excessive bail shall not be imposed unless we're short of pocket change, nor shall excessive fines be imposed unless we're fixing to go to the racetrack, nor shall cruel and unusual punishments be imposed unless we get to watch. Article 9, just because there's stuff in here we ain't told you don't mean you can go out and do all that stuff. And Article 10 of the Bill of Wrongs, all other powers are reserved to me, do you hear me? So get your cotton-picking hands off of them, you filthy monkeys. You're really starting to bug me. Anyway, to conclude, other candidates in this race don't represent the little fellers, they represent the rocker fellers. Come to think of it, so do I. To conclude, history may little note nor long remember my candidacy for the presidency. Actually, there's no may about it. History will forget, period. And so will you. So why do I bother? It all comes down, my friends, to one word: stupidity. I came in second in a stupidity contest. I would have come in first, but I was stupid. But I think we need a stupid candidate in this race if this election is to be truly representative of the electorate on whose behalf and for whose benefit it is being waged. After all, stupid people deserve representation too, even if they're too dumb to know it. So, on election day, when you pull that switch or lever or thingamajig or whatever you call it, remember, vote for me because I'm too dumb to steal. Vote for me because I don't believe in organized crime, I believe in organized chaos. Vote for me. I don't have a witty tagline to go with this, but I thought it couldn't hurt to say it one more time. Now, if I have one final message to share with you, it is probably this. Message, I don't care. Remember too, as I said before, politics is sports for people who are too fat to run and war for people who are too old to fight. And now, my friends, I would like to thank you. You give good audience. I must mention that I call you my friends even though you aren't, because my real friends would have never let me talk this long. One more thing. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. You'll note that I'm not asking you to do anything about it. I just don't want you to stop thinking about it. And now, I must leave you. I'm the wrong hero. I want to be your president. I sincerely hope that come election day, you will vote for me. THEWRONGHERO. The wrong hero.